Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Sighted. This is Jesse, and I am back for another episode of Growing Up Illegally Sighted. And last time we talked a little bit about some of my first and favorite gaming memories, consoles and handhelds, pinball, any kind of thing like that. This time I wanted to just do a little bit more toward computers. Mainstream computers. What did I use growing up? Um, a little, assistive technology, PC games. So we're just going to look more at the PC side of things this time. And again, hopefully everyone is enjoying this series. We're just trying something new. I've had people ask me questions about these topics. How did I get into gaming? How did I get into technology? Um, just any number of things. A lot of these ideas for videos have come directly from you guys, from viewers. So anyway, this episode, like I said, computery stuff. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so the first computer memory that I really have, I had seen computers before, but I hadn't really used them. I believe it was 1988. I went to a school for the blind summer program, and we had gotten back, like the first day, we had gotten back from like a picnic or something somewhere, and we were wandering around the school, just looking around, and I saw the technology room. We went in there. The technology instructor was still in there, setting up probably for the next day. And so we got to see some Apple II stuff. And I still remember this to this day because it was not only the first time I really got to use a computer, but it was the first time I got to use a talking computer. It was an Apple II, and they used the old Echo speech synthesizer. And I wish to God I had an audio sample of that because, again, you guys complain, people complain about like, oh, I don't like these voices. They're robotic, or they're not human sounding or whatever. Voices now are pretty darn good. You want to talk about some real jank voices back in the day? Whew, there were some doozies, and Apple was one of them. The Echo was one of them. It was like a card that you would put in the computer, and it had this external speaker. It had two knobs, one for volume and one for speed. Problem is, if you sped it up, it would chipmunk. The pitch would raise, so you had to, and really to the point where it was screechy. Like it would just, I don't even want to try to attempt to mimic it. It would just be so fast and it would be so high pitch. It was just shrill and horrible on the ears. Like, oh God, my ears are bleeding. Um, so there was this program that she loaded up, and I think it was called High-Low Number Guess, where it was basically choose a number between 1 and 10, 1 and 50, 1 and 100, whatever. And, is it higher or lower? You've heard of those types of games before. But what was funny about this one is not just that the computer talked back to you, but what I thought was really funny about it was the whole thing was just like I was talking about that baseball game in the last video, and the umpire, the program would insult you. So you'd pick, okay, you got 1 to 50, okay, 25. Oh, what are you, stupid? The number's way higher than that, and just you'd start mocking you. Okay, let me try 48. Oh, only an idiot would pick that answer. Try a little lower, or whatever. And it was just funny because it was just a whole new experience for me hearing a computer talk back to you, that I didn't have to read what was on the screen myself, but then I could interact with it and I could hear it talking to me. But the fact that it was just ripping into me, it was just insulting me. I thought it was hilarious. Um, so that was my first computer memory. And then later on that week, it was I got to play a few Apple II video games because the instructors that they had, they could only work with so many people. So while they were working with teaching other people stuff about assistive technology, some of us were able to play some Apple II games. And the first Apple computer game that I remember playing is Karateka. Still remember that too. A really cool game. I've covered different versions of it on the channel. They released an Apple II port of it for iOS several years ago. It's probably a PC version. I think I played an emulated version on my Apple II emulator version on my computer at one point. But Karateka is that was a really cool game. Again, going from playing something like the Atari, the graphics were simple on the Apple II as well, but they were a little bit more detailed. It wasn't quite as pixely or blocky. And, if you're familiar with things like Prince of Persia, Karateka, these are Jordan Mechner games, and they had this really fluid animation style to it, so they really caught your attention. They had this rotoscoped animation that they use, and so just hearing the Apple II sound and seeing the smooth animation, and karate's cool, so yeah, I kind of dug it. Saw things like Moon Patrol, Zaxxon, a couple other odds and ends. Of course, we did the talking typer, learning some keyboarding skills, that kind of thing. And through grade school, it was pretty much Apple II. I didn't have a computer at home. We would have computers at school, but they were like, oh, you might have one like third, fourth grade. I think we even had to share them. So like 1 week it would be in the fourth grade room, 1 week it would be in the fifth grade room, and they would just bring it around on a cart, and so people could use it for like a month or something. I don't remember. But it was one of those things where if you finished your homework or you finished your assignment early or you finished a test early, you could maybe get a few minutes to sneak in and work on some sort of education-y app, or if you're lucky, play an Apple II game, maybe why did I just go stupid? What is the name of that game? Oregon Trail. Duh. Oregon Trail. Yeah, there we go. A little bit of that. I really didn't use, other than maybe talking typer in one of the classrooms to learn some keyboarding for myself. There was no assistive technology. And that's something I want to talk about when we get to the education related videos, is that all I really had was a dome magnifier and quote unquote large print books, which really weren't that large. So I hated school. I struggled, especially when you get to like fourth, fifth grade, sixth grade, when you had to start reading a lot more. Seventh grade, they finally decided, yeah, he is having trouble. Maybe he should learn some blindness stuff, some low vision-y stuff. Maybe a little O&M, maybe a little technology, maybe a little Braille. Maybe I should have learned that 3-4 years ago. But okay. So what I ended up doing is for 1 year, I went, in seventh grade, I went to a school for the blind, and I went to regular public school in the morning, and then I went to the school for the blind in the afternoon and took those types of classes. So that's where I started getting introduced to, I used more Apple II. I did a lot of my schoolwork through there. I used things like, I think it was Apple Talk or something like that. I think there was another speech synthesizer. It was called the Slot Buster. I don't know if I've ever found an audio sample of that either. I remember liking that one better than the Echo because you could speed that up without it going all chipmunk on you. But yeah, I remember doing some homework with that, doing the typing stuff. And then I really started getting introduced to PC. Windows was really not much of a thing yet, around 1990, 91. So it was DOS. I learned DOS. I learned JAWS for DOS, ZoomText for DOS, Magic for DOS. Yeah, they all existed. I preferred JAWS and ZoomText. I really didn't care for JAWS or Magic for DOS much. Magic had this weird thing where it would magnify, but for some reason the letters would look all stretched to me. They would look all, they were kind of narrow and tall, and I just wanted them to appear as is. It just looked kind of strange. So yeah, I used JAWS for DOS and ZoomText for DOS for quite a few years. And that was back when you had to know how to use a computer. Like right now, you can kind of just search for stuff, or you can point and click on things, or, it's pretty straightforward. Back then, you remember even to set up like to print something, you had to know like, the baud rate and the handshake and the parity bit and stop bit. And like you're setting up a DOS game and you had to know your DMAs and IRQs, and that all that probably just meant nothing to the vast majority of you. Oh yeah, but that's the kind of stuff you had to do. You had to know the commands, type the commands to get around DOS and create folders and make batch files and all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah, learned some DOS there, and then I also got introduced to more CCTVs. And granted, these things were ginormous. Think giant CRT TVs and basically a giant video camera. These things took up like a whole huge desk. They were freaking huge. And then I did also start to look at note takers back then, because that was when devices like the Braille Mate, anybody remember that thing? The Braille Mate and the Braille and Speak. Now the Braille Mate was a note taker, and the thing that was interesting about that is it had one, yes, count them, one Braille cell in the middle. So between your dot 1 and your dot 4 buttons, a little bit above, you had a little cursor thingy, and you had one cell of Braille. So yeah, if you wanted to know how something was spelled, you could go letter by letter and at least get the spelling of something. People complain about 12, 14, 20 cell, even 40 cell displays. Well, you could go back and use the Braille Mate that had one. But I used that for quite a little while. And then I think it got discontinued because I don't think telesensory was around for much longer. I think they eventually went out of business or something like that. So I did switch over to the Braille and Speak. And in high school, I actually really kind of liked it, because back then, laptops aren't what they are now. Like, I used a laptop while at the School for the Blind in 7th grade. And these laptops were, again, they were DOS. They couldn't even really do graphics. Any kind of graphics were just like shaded things, or they would just be like text, kind of like ASCII art for graphics. They weren't even backlit. Like the laptop I remember using, it was literally, think about like a crappy calculator that you have right now, where like you have to be in good sunlight and it's just like a LED display. Just very, very simple. It wasn't backlit, so the contrast was horrible. So you couldn't really, you basically had a light background, and then like the text would be like black or dark blue-ish. Just super low resolution, really bad contrast screens. So really, a Braille and Speak, functionality-wise, was not really much different than an early laptop. Yeah, you couldn't run as many programs on it, but functionally, you had a lot better battery life. You had the capabilities, you had your note-taking or writing capabilities that you needed, but really, the internet really wasn't a thing. Yes, I did use the internet a little bit, but this was even before things like AOL or things like that, where I think you had to pay either by the minute or by the hour. Like I remember my instructor showing me, it was like Procom or CompuServe or some friggin' thing. I think it was like literally by the minute. Might have been by the hour, but I don't even remember. I mean, it was like just stupid expensive, and it was all text. So, I mean, you check your email, you might look up something, maybe. Um, there was no Google back then. There was, hell, I don't even think things like web crawler existed back then. I don't remember what we really did. So, yeah, I mean, there really wasn't much to do. BBSs, maybe. Um, and then if you were lucky, you didn't have to dial long distance. Because remember long distance, that used to be a thing. So yeah, I got introduced to a lot of different stuff that year. And in high school, we had a DOS computer lab. And that was pretty funny because um, we had a couple of computer classes, but not too much. A little bit of typing. And yes, I did learn on a typewriter. Fun, fun. Um, we had a couple of classes. They use this Office software, which is really neat actually. For DOS, it was actually really good. I've used WordPerfect, but they had this software in school called PFS First Choice, and it was kind of a DOS Office suite. You had a word processor, you had a spreadsheet, and you had a database. And we had a class on a little bit of everything. They taught us how to use all those sort of different things. After seventh grade, I did have a computer at home, but it was an ancient thing. It was a desktop. It was an old IBM XT, no hard drive, monochrome screen. I think it was cyan, or like a yellow cyan and black. No hard drive, but I was fortunate enough to have two 5 1/4 inch floppy drives, not just one. I had two. So that was better, I guess. Um, Used that for quite a while. Um, in 95, I got into this program through the University of Washington. I think it's only for Washington residents these days, but for a while it was open to a few different states. I think it was like Washington, Oregon, Montana, North Dakota, might have been one other state, but it was called the Do It program, and you can look it up right now. I mean, it's, I can't remember the exact address, but the Do It program, it's kind of like a college immersion type of thing where like and this was not just for blind people. This is for anybody, anyone with any kind of disability. And it was like a 2 to 3 year program where you were like the first year you would go out during the summer in August. You'd go to the University of Washington campus, and you would be out there for 2 weeks. You were a year one scholar. The second year you go out there for 1 week as a year two scholar, and you just do all kinds of stuff. You go do stuff around the college. You go to not necessarily college classes, but you do just all kinds of different things. You go to different labs, and it was especially for people who were interested in STEM fields. So it was really kind of a lot weighted toward science, math, technology, and engineering type of things. I talked about VR. That's where I saw VR for my first time in 1995. We got to go to an early prototype VR lab, and I told you about that in a couple of other videos. But um, we got to see all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of experiences. And it was kind of a way also you'd meet a lot of people. You would meet a lot of people with different disabilities, similar disabilities, get some experience living on a college campus, getting around a big city if you're from the middle of absolute nowhere like I was. And part of that program was also they wanted you to do things throughout the year in between summer sessions. So as part of that program, if you were accepted, they worked with you, and I got a computer. I got a desktop computer. I got a printer. I got a scanner. I got JAWS and Open Book. I don't remember if I had Zoom Text or not. I might have, but I don't remember. I know I had JAWS and Open Book. So yeah, I got to learn scanning OCR software. I got to learn all that kind of stuff. And so what they wanted you to do was throughout the year, you would work with the staff and you would choose a project between year 1 and 2 where, like for me, I was kind of interested in architecture at the time. So I'm like, oh, well, let me learn this. They had a copy of this 3D home design software. So it was kind of a simple Windows home design software, kind of like a CAD type of thing. So I played with that, and I was like trying to, figure out what types of things, like how to use the software, how to build something, and then I would do some sort of a presentation for it during year 2. But then they also wanted you to communicate with all the other scholars, be involved. You'd have like message boards and emails or like a mailing list and all that kind of stuff. So, I learned a lot through there. That was when I first learned about, again, doing a lot of things through DOS, not too many things through Windows, but like we dial up modem, man. Send mail, Pine. Anyone remember those? We would do telnetting. We would telnet to their server where we could do all kinds of other stuff. Right now you can just, once you have internet, you can just basically click a program, boom, you got, Chrome, Safari, Edge, Firefox, whatever. Back then, man, you had to go through all kinds of crap to get like a graphic-y internet. You could go links, which is all text, but if you wanted to use like Netscape Navigator, or even before that, you had Mosaic, the predecessor. You had to first configure, like, what was it, Slip and PPP, and you had Trumpet WinSock, I remember using. Again, a lot of these things, that's what's, I'm curious how many viewers are younger, and of like half the stuff that I'm talking about here is probably, you're probably like, what in the hell are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, like you had to set up all these different things, like put in all these IP addresses and all these other numbers, and hope to God everything worked. Because then, if you got everything to work and connect, then you could then and only then could you launch Mosaic or Netscape Navigator and try to use the internet on a crappy 14.4 modem. I started with a 96 baud modem, which is people complain when their internet slows down. Yeah, I'm guilty of it too. But man, back then, 1200 baud, man, slow. 14.4 modem, slow. Even if you got lucky enough and you had a 56K modem, you live in the middle of nowhere like we did, you were lucky to get half that just because our phone lines are so shitty. Oh yeah, but we did it. Not only did I use it on the computer, but remember I used the Braille and Speak in high school. Oh yeah, you can use a Braille and Speak on the internet. I used it to check email. I used it to look up things on Lynx, the Lynx browser. That's a whole other procedure that I don't really want to get into, because like I said, getting that to work was a miracle in itself. I kind of did it not because it was elegant, but it was just like, oh, this is a nerdy thing that I can do. I want to make it work. I want to see if I can make it work. And I did. I would never ever want to do it again now. Well, actually, you couldn't do it now because you'd try to load any web page, and the web page would be bigger than the entire memory of the Braille and Speak. So, there's that. But yeah, so that's sort of what I used in high school. Started to learn Windows. didn't have I didn't have JAWS for Windows. I had JAWS for DOS, but I didn't get JAWS for Windows until early college. Um, JAWS 2.0. I didn't get 1.0, but I got 2.0. Um, Windows 95, 98. Then what else? We went through. Actually, it was kind of cool because I had this computer that I had through the Do It program, and I actually got to make a little money using that thing because I lived in college, and back then this technology was expensive still. So people found out I had a scanner, and I had a little program where you could scan in images and then save them. Hell, people would come down to my dorm room. Hey, here's a disk. Can you save? Can you scan some images for me, and I can put them on a disk? So, oh yeah, I made a few bucks doing that, man. That was interesting. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of what I did early on in college. Bought my own computer. I used the Braille and Speak a lot throughout high school for taking notes and things in class, using it as a calculator. But I didn't, once I got to college, I really wanted to have a laptop because I just knew that the computers were getting good enough now. You know, you had Windows 95, you had other programs that you can do. I had, like I said, getting JAWS for Windows. Um, I knew it was something, especially wanting to be in a technical, what I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, but I wanted to be in a technology related field. So I got a little bit of assistance getting like the JAWS program, but as far as the computers go, in college I took out loans and I bought myself a desktop. I bought myself a laptop. Got it through the college credit union and I paid them back. Um, so yeah, my first laptop was this big honkin' brick from Dell. It was really cool at the time, but man, like I said, that thing was just it was a beast. That was the first DVD player I ever had because or DVD players were super expensive back then. Um, so yeah, that was like the first thing that was the first time I ever got to see DVDs. Um, let's see, I think the first DVD I ever watched was The Rock. I'd borrowed it from a somebody at college, and yeah, still an awesome, awesome movie. Cheesy but awesome. Um, so yeah, I had a Dell laptop. I think it was like a Pentium 400. I think I had a Pentium 450 desktop as I got around the same time. Um, yeah, one thing that I forgot to mention when I was in high school, like I said, we had the Do It program computer. Well, I had it for a little while until one morning we're lying in bed and all of a sudden you just hear crack, just this loud sound. Like, oh, that can't be good. Yeah, the lightning storm came through and fried my computer. Came in through the phone line, completely just fried the telephone jack, fried my motherboard, my processor. All that stuff was just shot. Surprisingly, my hard drive was okay. But it took me a while to get the computer fixed because we had to go through the program and work through a local computer shop and everything. But when I got it back, I got a slight upgrade, so I had a little bit better of a computer. I went from like a 486 to like I think it was a Pentium 133 back then. And the thing that was frustrating to me in the beginning was I didn't realize that the computer didn't have a sound card. So yeah, I was doing all the Do It stuff, but I wanted to play games too because of course I did. Um, and I found out pretty quickly that, oh, I don't have a sound card. I learned what a sound card was. Because right now they're all integrated in most computers these days on the motherboard, but back then you had like a sound blaster or any number of other separate cards that you had to plug into the motherboard. But yeah, I finally got that upgraded and everything, and just, I mean, computer memories, man, gaming memories. like I love Nintendo and everything, but man, when I saw Doom for the first time, when I saw Wolfenstein 3D for the first time, those two games blew my mind. You know, I was used to side-scrolling, overhead games, you know, pretty much what the Nintendo could do. I saw Super Nintendo by that point, but literally running around in first person was like smooth first person and just running around shooting Nazis and demons. That was the coolest damn thing I'd ever seen. I was just starting to get into like rock and like really like heavy metal, and hearing somebody show me the first time I saw Doom, you know, they didn't have a sound card either, so I just saw like, you know, it had like no sound or a PC speaker, but then somebody showed me Doom with a really good sound card and like E1M1, and just hearing that game started like, holy crap, this is like, again, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Um, you know, of course, you know that Doom is one of, if not my favorite games ever. So yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is the best thing ever. I had to have it, and I did. Um, in high school, again, dial-up modem. I did have one or two friends in high school where we would try to, again, you had to try to set things up. We only had one phone line, and if we wanted to play, I remember my parents getting so pissed because we would have to call each other, troubleshoot, figure out what, because we were trying to use like Duango and some other programs so we could do direct dial-up and play deathmatch or co-op with each other in Doom or Heretic or Hexen. Because there was a program there was Duango, and then there was some other one that like it had, you could do all the id games or the Raven games. Like it was, like I said, Doom 2, Heretic, and Hexen. And you'd choose a radio button, you'd choose which one you wanted, and you had to configure it all correctly. So we'd call each other, figure it out. Oh, it didn't work. So you would call and say, okay, don't answer the phone. And they would keep hearing the phone ring, because we'd have to either pick up with the modem or pick up with the to call each other back and troubleshoot again. And my mom would just get so mad. Um, but yeah, direct dial-up, man. I played Doom against deathmatch against somebody from school. Then when I got to college and I learned what a T1 line was, I learned what broadband internet was, and almost lost my mind again. You mean I don't have to dial up? I can literally just start something and be on the internet? Oh, good Lord. I can't tell you how much I was on the internet just looking stuff up, downloading game demos. And then I got into Quake Deathmatch. Ooh, Quake Deathmatch. I played a shit ton of Quake 1. That was fun. Even Doom Deathmatch, did some of that. A little bit of Carmageddon, but it was mainly Quake, Doom, a little bit of Duke Nukem 3D. Yeah, good times. But yeah, I mean, then it was really just, now that I had broadband and I, could learn stuff more on my own. My parents couldn't tell me, well, you can only be on the computer for an hour or whatever. Like now I could just be on the computer and hack away all night if I wanted to. And so yeah, getting the desktop, the laptop, and once I got the laptop, I sold my Braille and Speak to somebody else and really haven't used any note taker since. I mean, there's just so much more you can do on a laptop that I've talked about my opinion of note takers before, but that's kind of where I've been since. I never really got into building computers much. Like I did work with a couple of friends of mine, and we did build a couple of machines, right around when the AMD ones came out, the like the Thunderbirds and stuff like that. I think it was like a 1.4 gigahertz processor or something like that. But yeah, we tried to build a couple machines, and it went pretty well overall. But again, I've said it with the AMD ones, there's something always that would be goofy about them. Um, like I said, just the first time playing Doom, the first time playing Quake, the first time using broadband internet after struggling through dial-up for so many years. Again, people, you have a cable modem or DSL or even, mobile hotspot internet. That's way better than dial-up ever was. Um, you don't know the joys of waiting 7 hours to download an MP3 file of a song. Yeah, that's the other thing. Discovering what, MIDIs, and first it was MIDIs and then it was MP3s. Like, oh dude, wait, you can just go to the internet and download music? I mean, this was even before before Napster, you could literally go and just do a search and you'd be like Metallica MP3s, or you could just look up any band and like there would be just a website with links, and you just download MP3 files of the songs you wanted. Or then you had things like Napster and all those file sharing things. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, we all took advantage of that to some degree back in the day. I'll admit it. But all those things were pretty interesting. Um, and some of this stuff I'll go into more detail. Like I said, when we go into like high school specifically, tips for, again, if you're an adult and you have a kid who is blind or visually impaired going through school, whether it's high school, grade school, college. I do want to cover that type of thing. Or if you're a transition student, then you're going to be going off to college. I do want to talk a little bit about grade school, high school, college, because there are certain things that I would encourage either yourself if you're in that situation, or if you are a teacher, a parent, or whatever. There are certain things that I would encourage you to advocate for your kids. So we're going to get into that in a couple of other future videos, but this is just kind of going again down memory lane. People ask me, how did you get into technology? What did you do? How did you get into gaming? These last couple of videos, console games and then PC games and PCs and stuff, that's kind of what I did. I'm sure I skipped over a bunch of different things, but we'd be here all day if I didn't. Um, but yeah, I mean, ever since I saw the Apple II, and again, just like seeing that I could control something on the screen with the Atari 2600, I saw what you could do with a computer. You can do word processing, you could play games, you could do. I remember having a family friend where they had one of those, what is it, print shop back in the day, where you could print out like signs and banners and stuff on a really, really slow dot matrix printer. Just all the things you could do with the computer. And then once we started learning about the internet, it's like, oh, wait, the internet, this is even way cooler. Being able to look up things, download things, and even, once you figured out things, I remember ICQ back in the day. Oh yeah, before Twitter and social media, there was ICQ and MIRC. Didn't do too much with MIRC, but our college, we used ICQ quite a bit. You would be in the dorms and you would just hear everywhere, uh-oh. You would hear that all the time. But yeah, man, like internet, like how much, again, I'm kind of glad I grew up when I did, because I've seen pretty close to like literally the beginning. I know the computers have been around since like the 60s and stuff, but like actual semi-affordable consumer computers going from no internet to text-based internet to graphic internet. I got to see that whole thing. I mean, yes, it's cool to be alive when it says, oh, we have internet everywhere all the time now. That's cool. And I'm sure I would have loved growing up that way too. But in a way, it's kind of cool having experienced this whole progression. Like I said, no computers to old computers to no internet to crappy internet to good internet. And now we have streaming video, audio, games, just anything. You don't know how good you have it right now, basically. Anything else that I want to mention? There are some computer memories, like, for school and everything, but I might mention those when we were in school, during the high school video, just to make things more interesting. Because there were some funny things that happened back then. But yeah, I mean, and it's really just, if you're new to technology, or you're new to blindness, and you have any interest in technology, like schooling, yeah, it can help you. But honestly, if you really, really want to get into it, the best thing that you can do is just start using it. Just start exploring. Just start teaching yourself. Explore. Especially, you got so many resources now. You've got Google, you've got YouTube, you've got all kinds of websites, you've got books and audiobooks, and you got all kinds of resources available to you now that we never even had. And yeah, you might mess up your computer every once in a while. I know I sure did. I remember in DOS, I thought I was going to be cool and try something to make my computer run a little better. Yeah, there's a little file called autoexec.bat that your computer absolutely needs to run, and if you wreck that file, if you mess it up, your computer ain't booting. So I had to sift through all the code, not knowing anything, and just looking for something that looked wrong. And luckily, I actually ended up figuring it out. There was like some weird punctuation or space that looked different from everything else. I'm like, what if I change it to this? And lo and behold, it actually worked. So, oh yeah, man. Things that, again, you had like your high and low memory. I remember like Wolfenstein needed more high memory back then. I don't ask me to explain how all that works, but like basically you had to allocate different memory types so that programs would run because you had such little memory back then. Doom would run on pretty much any boot disk that you had, but like Wolfenstein, it required the memory to work a little bit differently. And so I remember having to get help trying to create separate boot disks just so that game would run. Good times. Anyway, that is just some babble about some of my memories and history of computers, assistive technology, computer games. Again, Doom, Quake, being in college. I didn't touch on Steam, but basically, yeah, once Steam came out, even in beta form, my roommate and I were there, so we were using Steam before it was even 1.0. We were using the Steam beta with Half-Life. You'd put in your Half-Life CD key, and the only games you had were the Valve games. You had, what was it, like Half-Life and Team Fortress and Counter-Strike or something. There's like 4 or 5 games that you had, and now there's like gazillions of them. So anyway, that is, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys found it entertaining or informative or whatever. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/IllegallySighted, IllegallySighted.com, and right here on YouTube. Until next time, chat with everybody again later.